Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone. His name is Chase Caldwell. Just the two of us with you again here today at our regularly scheduled time, not on a Friday morning. So, very happy to be back with you after a big weekend, kind of a wild weekend of college football, and ahead of a absolutely loaded weekend of college football. So, Chase, how we doing?
Doing well, doing well. Hadn't looked at the numbers, so I have no idea what our listen count looked like last week. Have you?
No, and to be completely transparent, we only have the YouTube numbers to go off of because I did not publish the episode.
Oops.
Yep.
Sorry,
Hey, I'll own
y'all.
that. I'll own that.
Yeah. Hey, it's part of it. So really, we might need to just rehash a couple things as it comes up from Friday's episode because we got it really, really late at the very, very end of the week. We're battling some sickness last week and some
Yeah.
craziness in life. So,
So
um,
it's that time of year. Like I get a sinus infection every September.
oh
It
yeah.
never fails. I'm trying to do allergy shots right now to make it a little more bearable, but I'm not all the way through, and it got me. I got. So was down most of the last week. Was able to power through, and hey, even in the worst circumstances, after the worst kind of game that we don't want to talk about, we still
Yeah.
sat here and did a show. So
Stood in the paint.
that's how hard we work for you guys, but not hard enough to actually put the episode on our feed. But we appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well,
Um,
so we got quite a bit to talk about. Really, because I'm sure some of the regular listeners probably didn't listen to Friday's episode, so that's okay, especially if they only listen on other platforms other than YouTube. So we'll I may mention a couple things I said on the last one, just that way it catches everybody up to speed.
yeah, I think the main takeaway, and still will be kind of a theme of this episode, is don't sell all your stock just yet.
Hmm.
With regards to this A&M football team, look, guys, we know Miami was tough. Like you know, we're right there with you. Like we watched that, and we didn't like it. Like we all hate losing just as much as one another, and that stunk. But I think we both think there are pieces of this team that are super encouraging. And when you look around, it's there for the taking. And
Hmm.
that's something that we're going to get to today. But these next two games, Auburn at home, Arkansas at Jerry World. These next two are going to tell us a lot of things about this football team, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you've formulated an opinion about this team at this point in the season, go ahead and throw that out the window. Because I'm not only saying that for those of you who have just decided that this season is going to be terrible and that I'm trying to pump you full of maroon Kool-Aid. I'm just saying, you know, like I'm cautiously optimistic on the year. I think we're going to have a good year, even still with the loss, but I still have to really wait and see how we are 2 weeks from now to really you know, decide whether or not that's gonna last, or at least that emotion is gonna last for me, because I just think I really think, and it's kind of probably good that we can kind of rehash some of last week's without feeling too bad about it because nobody listened to it, right? That you go back to last week, I was feeling discouraged maybe at the loss. Like really, I don't know why, but I just didn't really fully consider that we might lose to Miami. I kind of went in, I knew it was very much a possibility, but I really wasn't thinking we were going to go and lose. And so um, to go to that game, lose, normally I'm super, super discouraged, super bummed whenever we get our first loss, whatever. Um, I just felt like Miami was a much better team than what maybe we expected. And I felt like I felt for the first time probably in Jimbo's tenure and even dating back to like Sumlin time frame. I just felt like that was one of the not so ugly losses that we've ever had. Like it it was a loss, and for those of you who are going to come at me with comments about um, you know, finding the good in a loss, I'm just saying like it wasn't a demoralizing loss, and we've had so many demoralizing losses through the past couple years that it in some ways was a breath of fresh air, where it was like I just think we lined up against a team, they proved to be the better team that day, but then we walk away and we're seeing Texas beat Bama, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, this is going to be another down year for us. And then you fast forward a week, and if you felt that way last week, I feel like there's less of a reason to feel that way this week, right? Because you see all these quote unquote elite teams like Bama not scoring a touchdown until the fourth quarter against USF, and struggle win all across the board. Almost every single game out there for a top 25 team was either a loss or a struggle win. And so suddenly there's nobody that looks just so absolutely elite that they couldn't, you know, be a win for us. And so that's kind of where now I'm standing, saying, okay, sure, we might have some things that we've got to work out, but name a team that's just good, that if we go head to head on, they're absolutely going to beat us no matter what, and I just don't think that there's that many in college football, if at all.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, and I put this on Twitter like as I was watching Bama struggle with USF. Florida State had struggled with a bad Boston College team that morning. Georgia was down at halftime to South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and and the Gamecocks kind of had them on the ropes a little bit. And I was like, I'm not saying that this season is going to go full 2007, but it might go full 2007.
That's exactly how I felt. Yeah. I didn't
Like
see your
that year,
tweet, but that's what I would
yeah,
say. Sure.
yeah. Like the champion that year was a 2-loss LSU team. Uh, Teams that got to number 2 and lost were like USF was one of those teams. West Virginia should have played for a championship that year. They lost their last game to Pitt, a 3-8 Pitt team, and it was just wild. The whole season was wild. So there wasn't a really dominant team that year. I don't think there's a dominant team this year. Like your playoff could be, you know, Washington, Miami, Michigan, and Oklahoma. I'm not even sure like who to say. It could be
Right.
anybody. And there's a bunch of teams that play each other this week that we're going to find out a lot about. Hello, Ohio State and Notre Dame. That's going to be a big one for sure. But yeah, there's just not that dominant force, and I get why it's frustrating. Like why the Miami game was so frustrating for A&M fans is because it is so wide open, and we're like, hey, like we have the chance, we have this great young quarterback and these receivers and all this talent on defense, and we've already got a loss. Like like I sympathize with you. Like I get that. Like I feel the same way, but um, there's nothing out there that says, hey, this team can't go out and win a whole bunch of games and maybe sneak their way into that conversation. Not saying they will, not saying I expect them to, but it's just you don't know what to expect with this season.
Well, and that's the thing. Okay. If you look at, let's look just for a second at the SEC West. Okay. We're in week 3. We just finished up week 3. Only 3 games have been played. And the only teams in the West that don't have a loss are Auburn and Ole Miss.
And they might both have them this weekend.
Yeah, they might both have them this weekend. And so, I mean, Auburn was thought of coming into this season as the worst SEC West team. And Ole Miss, I mean, Ole Miss plays Bama this weekend. And so if we get a win this weekend, and let's say Bama gets a win against Ole Miss, we're now sitting at like a gridlocked SEC West going into week 4, where the half of the teams are 3-1.
Yeah.
And so, and only a handful have conference losses at that point. But for us to have a loss, number one, if you're going to lose non-conference, that's a bit way to go. And lose to a good team, not an App State. And lose in September when you have the whole season still as an opportunity. And so I think that's where I stand. And I've said this to you already, Will, but not maybe not on the podcast, that I would rather go into this season being higher on A&M than maybe I should, and then us fall short of that, than I would go into this writing the whole season off and, oh my gosh, we've already got a loss. Woe is me. It's another bad year for A&M, and expect the worst. And then if we end up having a good season, when do you determine that, hey, we're a good team? Week 7, week 8, whenever football season's almost over and you didn't enjoy it because you were dragging your knuckles on the ground talking about how bad we are. Like, we're not a bad team. We're a good team, and the whole season's in front of us. And so, I you know make fun of me for being a homer. I don't really care. I am an A&M fan. That's why I have a podcast, right? Like it is it's there for the taking. There's never been a time. I can't speak to another season where we've had one loss by week 3, and maybe that's bad in and of itself, because there's been some that we started 5-0, 6-0, whatever. But um, for us to have one loss in week 3 and we still have an opportunity to run this whole thing, and for us to be on equal footing with Bama, Arkansas, LSU, and Mississippi State, all with one loss, like, that hasn't happened in a long time. And
Yeah.
so, for normally I wouldn't feel the way I feel this year, but this is the year for us to have a loss at Miami, an away game on the road, ACC team, somewhere we hadn't played. It was very humid, a loud stadium, a young team. We're still trying to figure it out. Maybe we underestimated them, whatever the case may be. I just think all the factors are there to where it's still very possible for us to have a great year. And people forget that in 2012 we lost to Florida right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And how fun of a season did that become? And if you would have just decided, oh, we lost to a Florida team really early on in the year, then you wouldn't have enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
and so I choose not to do that.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. Like, there's still so much ball left to be played, and like maybe you have a hangover from last season, and that's totally fine. But this is not the same team. Like, this year's team would beat the crap out of last year's team. Like, to be quite honest, there's so many things that that were off or bad last year that we've already seen be corrected. That like this team is not going 5-7. I'll tell you that right
Mhm.
now. Like, if
Right.
if it does, I'll be absolutely stunned if it does.
Sure.
Um, but like, obviously the offense is way better. Quarterback's way better. The offensive line, most of the same guys are they're all healthy. They're communicating well. They're blocking well. They look like a very, very strong offensive line, maybe one of the stronger ones in the conference.
Mhm.
Run defense was abysmal last year. It's been locked down the first 3 games. I know 2 of those are not the best opponents, but um, we're not just leaving gaps wide open and blowing assignments left and right. Like, there's big changes, and I know that you know on the back end we need to see a little bit better than we saw against Miami, and better tackling and things like that, and better pass rush, better scheme. But I think it's still TBD, and that's why these next 2, man, like this is probably the more pivotal part of the season. And I know, like the next game's always the biggest, right? But
Mhm.
like, you go out there and dominate these 2, like, in a convincing fashion, and then host Alabama. Who knows what they're going to be? But like, you have a chance to make a statement in that game if you can get right these next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, you got a lot to play for at that point, because just by winning this weekend, we're in control of our own destiny, right?
Right.
I mean, we still are right now. And so you win this weekend, you win next weekend, then it just becomes Bama's a stepping stone. And they're look, if you watched Bama if you've watched Bama at all this year, but especially the last 2 weeks, tell me you can't watch Bama and then watch us and say we we will go toe to toe with Bama. Like I don't see their defense stopping our offense very much. I think we're gonna score at will on them, just based on what we've seen so far from our offense. But I don't think they're going to be able to score at will on us. And look, let's forget about Miami for a second. Like y'all just block that out, and let's back up a month ago. A month ago, season hasn't started yet. All of that. If I came to you and I said, we're going to struggle early on defense, what would your confidence be that we would be pretty good after that? Like we'll have a really good offense, very much improved offense, but we're going to struggle a little bit on defense at the very beginning of the season. I would personally a month ago have a ton of confidence that, oh, we'll figure that out. We got enough talent on that side of the ball that's not a problem.
Right.
And I still have that same level of confidence. So the people that are saying, oh, DJ Durkin, like we got to replace him and all that, why? Because we lost one game this year. Just wait, just see it. If we get middle of the year and we're 3 losses and our defense is abysmal, yeah, sure, because yeah, at that point, if you have this amount of talent on defense and you can't scheme very well, then what's going on here? But really, I just think that we didn't scheme well against Miami. I don't think it's an
Yeah.
indicator of how our defense did. Now, I would like to see our defense on the other 2 games be a little bit tighter and not give as many yards, especially against weaker opponents. But I just think we didn't scheme well. We did not pass rush hardly at all, if at all, against Miami. And you gave Van Dyke the ability to just sit back in the pocket for 30 minutes per play. And when you're running the scramble drill and you have all these talented receivers that are doing whatever they want to try to get open, they're eventually going to get open. It doesn't matter how you could have the most elite defense, the most elite defensive backs, but if you have no pass rush whatsoever and you're allowing these really good receivers to run around and get open, it's impossible to cover that. That's why Johnny Manziel was so good at Texas A&M. It was because nobody could cover him like that long enough. Like if he's able to stay in the back and you can wait long enough as a quarterback, there will always be somebody open.
Yeah.
And so the pass rush forces your quarterback to have to make a quick decision. It doesn't matter. You could have the worst quarterback in the world, and if they have nothing but time in the back or in the pocket, then they're going to look fantastic because there's not that pass rush. So do we have struggles on defense? Do we have things that we need to iron out? Absolutely. I'm not going to disagree there, but I'm just saying, like, do not write off the season because of how we played against Miami. Don't write off this defense that's probably the best talent-wise defense we've ever had at A&M, and that's saying something with all of the wrecking crew teams that we had through the years. Like, we have an ultra talented defense that if we can get the schemes right, yeah, it's going to make for a good year.
Yeah. Well, and for some reason, like what you said, agree, like cosign 100%. And for whatever reason, like we went into Miami and just played a pretty straight up vanilla defensive scheme against them, and I don't know why really, but it didn't work, and they came back this week and they mixed things up quite a bit, and threw some different looks and some multiple, um, looks at opposing at the ULM offense. And yeah, obviously ULM is not some juggernaut offense, but it wasn't just like, oh, we're just gonna line up our front four and drop our back seven and here we go. Like it was a lot more, just diverse in terms of
Mhm.
scheme. So that's why like I feel great about the offense. Like I just love watching them play. I love watching Connor play and these receivers, but I'm just I'm anxious and excited to see how we decide to defend a team like Auburn, a team like Arkansas, and then eventually a team like Bama. To touch on Bama for a second, with their quarterback situation, they started Tyler Buckner this past week, and when I saw that, I was like, "That's a terrible decision." Like, he's like, I know he's a college kid, don't want to pile on him, but he's not a good quarterback, and he looked bad against South Florida. They put in Simpson, and he wasn't that much better. And Nick Saban announced, I think yesterday maybe, that Milroe will be the guy going forward. So as much as I would have loved for them to start Buckner against us, they're they're too smart to do that. So
Yeah.
it seems like Milroe's the guy. He gives them a better option with his pure athleticism and ability to run and make some throws here and there. But like how do we choose to defend that? Like a mobile guy that's so so athletic and fast. Um, and then like when you get to like the Ole Miss and the Tennessee type offenses, like uh, I I just don't think you're going to see us go with the same game plan that we saw against Miami. If we do, then that's bad. That's a bad sign. Then you can go out there and lose those games, absolutely. But
Hmm.
it just I've got a feeling that they kind of learn their lesson a little bit, and maybe tinkering with the personnel somewhat, and see how it goes. But um, there are some folks that played really well on Saturday that I want to get to, but just want Chase, if you want to go and expound on that at all.
Well, I mean, I don't want to beat the dead horse. I think that, um, the season still very much sets itself up well because Bama's struggling. They've got struggles on offense, and I don't know that they're going to figure that out in the next 2.5 weeks. They might figure it out in the next month or two, but by the end of the season, I'm sure they'll have it figured out. But they play us in 2 weeks, and so I don't know that they're going to get that figured out by then, especially considering that they got Ole Miss and Mississippi State between now and then, and Ole Miss is looking pretty decent. I am I'm as of right now, if you ask me, I think Ole Miss is going to beat them this weekend.
Yeah,
And so how demoralizing that is that for a Bama team to already have 2 losses by week 4. Um, that could really change their trajectory for the remainder of the year. Like you said, we would need to change up our scheme by Ole Miss, but I think we could get that figured out by November easily. You know,
sure.
Same with Tennessee. Like, I mean, that's halfway through the season. I
So
think we're
of this group of games that we have left, like does one stand out as like, oh, like that's the one that I would mark as probably the most difficult?
Tennessee.
Yeah,
That's my thought. I mean, and that's them coming off of a loss here, but they played well against Florida. I think they had struggles, obviously, but everybody in the country did, and so I just think Tennessee, with it being a road game and it being, they're still. I would say Tennessee is a comparable team to Miami, right?
yeah,
And so if we go out and we beat Tennessee, then that in some ways shows the growth that we've had from Miami till Tennessee. A lot of the same, it's a road game, it's a talented team, all of that, but I mean that's that's still would how much would Tennessee be favored over us right now? You know, um,
yeah, and it's tough because I'm not real confident that they would be. Like, I may be a field
right?
goal, and like it'd probably be pretty close if that game was this weekend. Um, but like before this past weekend, I would have said the same thing. But uh, I'm starting to think that maybe Joe Milton is not what they thought he might be.
Hmm.
I think Hooker was a fantastic quarterback for them last year, and I think there's things from a scheme standpoint that we could do to maybe confuse Joe Milton a little bit, and like it's a long way to get to that game, but
Sure.
um, honestly, the way it looks to me, and I hope it goes this way because it'd be very exciting and good for us, but it seems like LSU and A&M at the end of the year could determine who wins the West.
Honestly, I agree with you 100% there. I do think that that's going to be the case. I don't even think Bama's going to be in the race for it. A month from now, I don't think Bama's even going to be in the race for it. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions there. Maybe I need to eat my own cooking and say you can't make a determination on the rest of the season based on the last 3 weeks. But as it sits right now, I think Bama has way too many struggles, and I don't think they're a team that's used to that, right? And so I think that you're going to see them. I think you're going to see them flop a little bit this year. Maybe they go 8-4, but when was the last time Bama went 8-4? That's a
Long
big
time
thing
ago.
in and of itself. So I agree. I think if I understood you correctly, the LSU is probably the hardest one on our schedule. As it sits today, I'd agree with that. I think really Tennessee's the both. Well, I forgot the LSU's an away game, so I might actually switch it to that. But
Yeah, it does make a big difference with them.
yeah, but that's. But if we're going in and that determines the West, um, I I like that idea
Yeah,
because I just think I think when you have that, I don't know. This is kind of touchy feely college football here that I'm about to say, but like if you're let's say that you're a team with a really good defense, but like a okay offense, right? And you've got something to really play for, like a national championship or something like that. I think that's when I don't think you're going to do as well as if you have an elite offense and have that same amount of moxie and like drive. Like look at A&M in 2013 when we played against Duke, right? Where we're down, we're struggling, but we had that drive to go out and fix it. And so I think that makes the defense play up. I think having the ability to score is important in big games like that. Um, and I just think I don't know. Jury's out on LSU's team right now for me. I haven't watched them enough to really say how good their offense is. I know Neighbors went off this week and all of that, but I don't know. Outside of LSU, there's not a game on our schedule that I'm just really really worried about. If that makes
yeah.
sense. I'm not saying that none of them are losable because they're all losable.
Oh yeah.
I'm
I
just
think every single one's a coin flip.
there's not one that I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get destroyed.
Yeah.
I just don't feel that way.
The one that really intrigues me, and I haven't seen them play. I don't know if I've watched any of their games this year. Is Ole Miss. Um, they've we've had some trouble with them lately. Like even when Elko was here, we had a great
Hmm.
defense. They still, racked up some yards against us, and beat us over there. But uh, I just don't like. It seems like Jackson Dart is playing some pretty good football right now,
Hmm.
and Kevin's a great offensive coach. So uh, we're like by the time that gets here, we'll know a lot more about them. Because it'll be they got Bama, then they got plenty of other SEC games. So we're definitely going to see. But I've got my eye on Ole Miss as kind of the maybe sleeper dark horse type of team in the West that could surprise or could come out and be pretty salty.
Hmm.
But we just don't know. But like that offense does. I don't know if it scares me, but I'm not excited to go play against that offense, if that
Yeah, me
makes
neither.
sense.
Me neither. I'm with you. I think the three hardest. This is crazy for me to say, but I think the three hardest games left on our schedule are going to be those away games that the
Yeah.
Tennessee, Ole Miss, and LSU. And so, and that's crazy. I'm less worried about Bama than I am Ole Miss, and and that's because partly I think that Ole Miss is going to go out and beat Bama this weekend, um, but yeah, it's that makes it seem like it's an
It's
'07 season, right?
yeah,
Just that in and
it's
of itself.
strange times that we're living in, no doubt
Mhm.
about it. Um, so the Aggies did go out and took care of business against ULM. ULM was 2-0. Uh, their wins were against Army, who pretty decent. They beat UTSA last week, and Lamar, who's a FCS team. So not much to read into there, but Uh, 47-3. It was over at halftime. Uh, I think I saw this on Twitter that they didn't have a single passing yard in the second half,
Wow.
uh, which is just kind of a crazy thing to say. Like who goes like in? It's not like they're running the triple option. Like they just didn't have
Right.
a they didn't have a passing yard, and all second half they couldn't do anything. But to some guys I want to single out. Obviously Connor Wigman. Uh, guys, we need to enjoy this cat for the next couple of years because he's going to be an NFL draft pick, a pretty high one at that.
Hmm.
Uh, I think at the end of next season, he'll probably will be getting that kind of recognition. Just like when he's got the ball, like nothing bothers him. Like
Hmm.
and watching him play, like as a fan, you just have so much confidence. Like like he's gonna figure something out and make a play, and he usually does. Um, we didn't have Evan Stewart or Noah Thomas in this game, uh, and it didn't matter. Anaya Smith and Jade Walker. I thought Walker had a huge game,
Yeah, he did.
and that just shows like some of the depth that we've got at that position. Anais did what he does. Uh, I thought, you know, Trey Zune uh, caught a lot of crap from message boards in the offseason, and I hated that because like I always thought he could be a pretty good player, and then when it came out that like what he played through last year and that kind of toughness to keep going out there even with those injuries, I'm like, man, he's gonna have a big year if he's healthy, and he's playing his butt off right now. And
Yeah.
uh, a spot that everyone was worried about going into the season, like he looks fantastic. So like we don't have like I've got no issues about left tackle right now.
Yeah.
Um, Bryce Foster didn't play. They bumped Naboo into center, put in Dewberry at guard, and Naboo like he's just a baller. Like he could play any spot and be perfectly fine. I thought he handled center pretty well for his first time. Um, and then the running backs look good. I'm man, these guys are so close to breaking a big one. Like it just
Hmm.
seems like Amari and Moss. We got Moss back. He didn't play against Miami. I guess I think he was dinged up, but it just seems like those two guys are just itching to like they're like a shoestring away from breaking a long run.
Well, Owens too,
Oh
because
yeah,
that was my number one takeaway of this week, was really that we have some plug and play skill positions that we have depth that I feel like we haven't had in so long. Like that's refreshing to me. It's exciting because, um, Evan Stewart didn't play. That freaked me out at first, and then, uh, what's his name went out mid. I don't even know if he made it to
Noah.
halftime. Noah, and and so I mean, to this point in the season, that's our offense. Both of
Yeah,
those
exactly.
guys, and yet look at how well we did. And granted, I understand it's ULM, but it's we looked like the exact same team with and without them on the field, and that was the exciting part to me. Of we've got guys, that are waiting on that opportunity to play, that are just as good as the guys out there, and so there's not near the drop off in talent there. That has been what I've been saying all off season, all last year, is I wanted to see more rotation of guys in skill positions. And maybe it's that we didn't have the talent before, or we didn't feel like we did, or something. Maybe
You
guys
do
weren't
now.
ready, but we do now. And I'm perfectly comfortable with any of our running backs being back there. I'm perfectly comfortable with, almost every single one of our receivers, and even our tight ends, are
Yeah.
fantastic. I don't feel like we've utilized them enough this season. But this week really showed that, hey, we could put anybody in that position on our team, and
Yeah.
we're going to excel.
Yeah, no, it's so refreshing to see because like last year was such a struggle on offense, and you know we didn't know who to block. We like it was just so discombobulated, and now like everyone's on the same page. We're dialing up creative plays. We have an awesome young quarterback who's just so confident in what he's doing, and he's balling out. These receivers are phenomenal. And I thought Jake Johnson had a pretty good game. Like
Yeah, I thought
he
so
got
too.
some more targets than he'd got in a while, and he just makes catching the ball look easy. I like
Mhm.
guys that don't they don't bobble it or body catch it. Like he's all hands, and I thought he played really well. Um, a guy that I've kind of forgotten about, and because he's been hurt since he got here and hasn't played a ton, but played a really great game on defense was Deuce Harmon.
Mhm.
I think Chappelle was hurt and couldn't go, and they were like, "Hey, like, Deuce is healthy. He's been, I guess, I assume he'd been practicing well, and he got the call at to start the game, and he looked great out there. Like
Yeah.
he slimmed down. He was covering guys well and not missing assignments, and that's just a guy to put in that mix of who to put in at corner. You got Chappelle, Grimes, DeBerry, Javon Thomas, the freshman, but it wouldn't shock me to see more Deuce Harmon going forward.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't shock me either. And that's where um I I don't know. I have a quiet confidence. Maybe it's not quiet because I'm voicing it, but I have a quiet confidence that our defense will progressively get better, like as we enter into conference play here and all of this. I think the installs that we were doing early, maybe we didn't scheme well enough. I think in some ways maybe we underestimated Miami, especially you get halfway through the first quarter, and it looked like it was going to be an embarrassment to Miami. It looked like we were just going to absolutely demolish them, and maybe we got too cocky. You can't ever tell what that ends up, but I think, like I said, I have a quiet confidence about our defense moving forward, and that's simply because of what you just said. We have that talent pool there. We have these guys that are really good in their respective positions, and I just think we haven't dialed it up enough against the teams we've played to this point, and I think as we go into conference play, you're going to see that defense get more and more creative. If we don't, then I think we'll struggle. And if we struggle with these players, especially when we're doing what we're doing on offense, if our defense continues to struggle with the talent that we have at hand, then yeah, I think it's very much warranted to be like, what's going on with our defensive coordinator? Because that ought to be one of the easiest jobs in the nation right now,
Yeah,
with who you have to work with. And
yeah,
so
exactly.
that's where I have that quiet confidence because yeah, sure we had one poor game, but I don't see that throughout. I do think that overall, on these other two games where we did win, I think I'd give the defense a 7 or 8 out of 10. I wouldn't say that they were playing lights out, but I think they have the ability to.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as getting right, goes on defense, I think Auburn is a prime opportunity to do so. Because like so far in the season, like Auburn's defense, which I don't think is you know anything that special,
Mhm,
has kind of carried them. Or like they played two scrubs, kind of like we have, but
mhm,
they went out and played Cal. They had to travel out there and play a late game, and they only won that one 14-10, where like like the defense kind of kept them and kept them hanging around and whatnot. But like the quarterback Peyton Thorne, like he's fine. Like he's not like someone that really scares you to death.
mhm.
Their receivers are okay. Nothing, probably average or around there for the SEC. But what's interesting is it sounds like they've got kind of the injury bug going on.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
and I think they're starting right guard and right tackle may not play this weekend. They might play, but they haven't been rolled out. But they both got kind of banged up in their last game. They got some guys on defense that are, uh, I think their best corner hasn't played all year due to injury. So like it's an opportunity for this team, this A&M team, to go out and make a statement against a conference opponent who's undefeated at the moment, and and go and get things going back in the right direction.
Yeah, they also are coming up on a gauntlet. They play us, then Georgia, then LSU, then Ole Miss.
Whoo, man,
Yeah.
that's not what you want.
Not at all.
Oh man,
And for us to be an 11 a.m. travel game for them, it's probably going to be hot, and all of that to start that gauntlet.
God,
Um,
that's the four
yeah,
best teams in our league, maybe.
I know that's what I'm saying. Like that's not good, And then to end the year with Bama, of course, but
Yeah, yeah.
like yeah, that is rough. Like,
Sheesh.
and
Yeah,
and then to look at the two teams that they did beat handily were UMass and Samford.
yeah.
So I mean,
So in case people out there like I feel like some people just hear like a team that isn't a big name team, they're like, oh, like they probably suck. It's like Sanford is a division lower than, like, it's an FCS school. Like what it's like playing SFA or Prairie View or someone like that. Like
yeah,
just not, it's not the same level of athlete that even a ULM has. Like it's it's just not a good team. And,
mhm.
and I'm assuming they probably blew them out, but uh, if you get the score pulled up for them on that
Yeah, it
one.
looks like they won 45-13.
So yeah, that I mean, that's honestly a little bit low,
Mhm,
if I'm being honest. But and UMass, like they're fine, like they're decent,
mhm,
probably better than they have been. Um, but yeah, I mean, like this is kind of what we talked about, back in the summer or back in August, is this kind of ramp up, you know, into the season. We had that with Miami. We underestimated them. They were better than we thought, and
mhm,
uh, and they took it to us a little bit. Now we've got Auburn, and then I think Arkansas is a little bit better than Auburn. I think Bama's probably better than Arkansas. So these next three, it's like a ladder. Like, hey, like let's go out and dominate, then go out and dominate, and then you come home against Alabama, like Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. This name, you know, storied program, who may be a little bit down, and you got a real shot to go and make a statement.
yeah, and especially if we're going in there and we can say, "Hey, Texas beat them, we have to beat them," and there's just the ramp up that we're about to see. It's each week gets progressively harder, just a little bit harder, a little bit harder, and then you get a break, and then it
Hmm.
starts over again, where each week gets a little bit harder, kind of, and so it. I said this before the season, but this is one of the most favorable schedules that we've ever had. Because if we were going in, if we were about to play LSU, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Bama, like Auburn's about to do, I'd be I'd be like, oh man, this is gonna suck. With some of the questions that we have, but that's where I mean, I'm still this team to this point in the season has given me the confidence on our offense that even like during the Miami game when we're down, I just kept feeling like, oh, that doesn't matter. We'll score. I haven't felt like that with A&M in a long time.
Even in
Like
2020, like I never had that kind of confidence.
yeah, but I have extreme confidence. Like oh, we'll get it back. Like it's not a
Yeah.
big deal. And now I remember feeling that way in 2013. And so like I look back to 2013 season when of course we had Johnny and Mike and we could score at will, but we couldn't hold anybody. We had a terrible defense. And I just like I look at that season, I look at this season, I feel very similarly on offense of like, that's fine. Our offense will bail us out if we need to.
Right.
But I feel like our defense is way better than what we had back then. And so that just puts us in a good position, I think, for these games.
Yeah. No, like, and we said this on the last one, even though it didn't go out, but like day of Miami, like I would, you know, have been grilling and had folks over and had a couple beverages and whatnot, and uh, like after that game, like the way that whole day went, I was like, I was just so like, just uh, like distraught and defeated, and I'm just like, man, like, to hell with all this, and eventually that wears off. Like it still sucks to lose, but um, I'm like I've been roped back in. Like I've got a renewed look, and it's kind of back to where I was, going into the season, and I'm just like I'm also a diehard Cowboys fan, and at this point, like I just look forward to watching my team play because I know how good they can be,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a joy to watch them play. It's nice to go out there and say, hey, we got Auburn, we got a conference team this week. Let's go out and take care of business. But
Yeah, let's go have fun.
I'm yeah, I'm looking for it, and I don't like 11 a.m. games, but it is kind of nice to just get it out of the way, and
Yeah,
then you get the rest of the day to hopefully celebrate and and talk about how great it was, and then
yeah.
and watch the other games. But um, around the country, things got a little bit sideways this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what stood out the most about this past weekend? Because we had some close games, maybe shouldn't have been close. Some teams lost that we didn't think would. Um, some just some all around kind of weirdness.
What stood out the most to me is I don't think that there's an elite team in college football right now.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at the top five, top 10 for sure, but top five, nobody played well. You had Florida State that struggled against Boston College. You had Georgia that struggled against South Carolina. You had Bama that struggled against USF. You know, Texas struggled. Um,
Texas
I,
did struggle, and that was Wyoming's backup quarterback, and that game was 10-10 in the fourth quarter
yeah.
until I think it was Worthy finally caught a pass and just took it all the way, and they ended up winning pretty comfortably. But that was a dogfight with Wyoming.
Mhm. Yeah, it was, and that's where I just maybe the case could be made that Ohio State is because I haven't seen enough from them to be able to say that they're not elite, but they hadn't really played anybody yet either. There will be we'll be figure that out this week when they play Notre Dame. So that's nice, and then yeah, I mean outside of that, like every team that I really had kind of decided. I mean, I gave Texas a lot of props after beating Bama. Like I'm like, that was a solid win, and y'all ought to enjoy this win because it's really hard to do that in Tuscaloosa, and it was a well deserved win. I thought Texas played well. I still do think that they played well. But then whenever Bama comes out a week later, and sure, maybe it's a hangover win, right? But they come out and they didn't. They were tied 3-3 in the fourth quarter against the University of South Florida. Like
And USF, like USF, isn't one of those good G5 teams. Like they're bad. Like
yeah,
they've missed a bowl game for the past like 5 or 6 years. I think I could be wrong, but like they're not a good G5 team.
right. So for that to happen a week later, then that question's like, okay, well, is Texas as good as they looked last week? Maybe they were playing a much lesser Bama team than what we thought. And then, so then they come out to play Wyoming. Well, they should come out and really crush Wyoming, and they didn't. And so sure, if you just look at the box score and you look at, well, it ended up 31-10, you're not going to see what we actually saw. That was a struggle win. And so then you had Tennessee, who I thought was a great team, and they lost against Florida and lost pretty handily too. And so like there's nobody in college football right now that just really scares me.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying that again, not saying that we couldn't lose to any. We could absolutely lose to Texas. We could absolutely lose to Oregon. We could absolutely lose to Washington or Georgia or Ohio State, like Colorado. We could lose to those teams, right? But none of them are so intimidating to me that would say that we couldn't at least put up a fight against them, if not win. Like
Yeah.
I would still be like there's just nobody that's that intimidating. There's nobody that's that elite. At least not yet. I don't feel like.
Yeah, and when it comes to like, the playoff and the favorites and like who's going to win the championship this year, I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
I watched Georgia play and like they looked, fine, but like the half that I watched, South Carolina was making plays on them and
Hmm.
holding them, and keeping their offense contained. And they just like they're not the team that they've been the last 2 years. They're still extremely talented and they're a very good football team, but it's just not at the level that it was. And I'm with you. I don't think anybody is at that level. Like Michigan and yeah, like Penn State, a team I've been high on. Like they kind of messed around with Illinois and didn't kind of pull away till the very end. Um, like I just don't know. I mean, uh, what's interesting to me is these Pac-12 teams because they
Hmm.
got some squads out there like
Yeah.
Washington. Washington has destroyed everyone that's been put in front of them,
Hmm.
and they played Michigan State this past weekend and they destroyed them like 41-7 or something like
Yeah.
that. Um,
Oregon
and
State's been rolling.
Oregon State is rolling. Washington State is playing is playing good football,
Yeah.
and obviously USC is so, and Oregon. So um, UCLA's playing well, and we've talked about this already. It's a bummer that that league's going away, like because it's so strong and entertaining this year, and next year they're just all splitting up and just all going different ways, and that's going to be the end of it. But this one last ride, they're making it a good one. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's just the thing. Like I think what that means for us is like there's years in the past where you look at the SEC and it was either Bama or Georgia, and you're like, yeah, they're going to win the SEC. And you look at the Pac-12, and it's like, oh, Oregon's got it on lock, and then you look at the Big 12, and oh, yep, Oklahoma's they're going to run it, and then you got Notre Dame that's good, and you got Ohio State that's for sure going to lock up their division. And so then you're like, oh well, so we have to be an undefeated team to make the college football playoff, right? And that's like how you feel. So you lose one game, and it's just throw it out the window. But that's not going to be 2023. It's just not. I'm almost. I don't think I would go so far to say this just yet, but there we could end the year without an undefeated team.
Oh, I mean, I would almost like if I could bet on that, I would put money on nobody running the table entirely.
Right. Right.
Like everyone's going to have a blemish somewhere.
So then, if that's the case, then why are so many people so upset about us losing to Miami? You know what I mean? Like it's just for
Yeah,
me, it's I'm just not buying into that. I'm not. That's the first loss that I've felt, maybe even as an A&M fan, where at the end of it, I'm looking at the Miami fans next to me, and I'm like, respect. Yeah, that was a
yeah,
solid game. Y'all played well. Like y'all beat us fair and square, but you know, that was a good game.
yeah.
All in all, that was a good game outside of just being a fan. I mean, we were in it to the very end. And
Right.
so like it wasn't a demoralizing loss to me. I didn't walk away hanging my head like, "Oh, woe is me." It was like, "Man, we looked good, but we got to figure some stuff out before we play SEC ball."
Yeah,
And so I'm excited at what all's going on around the country because yeah, whenever I walk away from that game and I'm seeing Texas beat Bama and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a rough year maybe. But then after this week, I'm like, it's wide open, baby. Like it is
yeah,
wide open, and this is going to be parity in college football. It's going to be fun, and there's just going to be a lot of excitement. Watch every single weekend. There's going to be some sort of upset and some sort of chaos that happens,
yeah,
and I love that.
yeah. And there's big potential for it this weekend, but there's there's three more teams I want to hit really quick. There's two that are
Mhm.
pretty good, and one that I think is crap. And I just want to I just feel like piling on this team here for a minute. But the two good ones, and not two teams that A&M fans are very fond of, are Notre Dame and Oklahoma.
Mhm.
Um, both of them have looked really really solid through the first 2 weeks. Um, at Notre Dame, plays Ohio State this weekend. We'll find out a lot more about them and if they're for real. But Sam Hartman looks great. The running back looks great. They got a great O line, pretty good defense. So they're just playing good ball. And Oklahoma may be the most surprising team of the whole season so far to me,
Mhm.
in just how good they've looked. Like uh, the the quarterback Dylan Gabriel, just super efficient. Um, he's got some crazy high completion percentage right now, like in the 70s, high 70s. Um, they've they've played good on defense, and I didn't know where to put them coming into the season. Like I just didn't know who was on even on their team anymore. Like they
Mhm.
had transfers, they had guys go to the NFL, and like it was just I didn't know much about them, but they're looking really strong. And you know, a few hours, or not, probably not even a few hours from them, a team that looks bad is Oklahoma State. Uh,
Oh my god, yeah.
they so last season they just fell apart in the middle of the year. Like
Mhm.
Oklahoma or not Kansas State beat them like 49-0 one week, and like that was it for them. Like they were done, and like they just kept getting like blown out left and right down the stretch. And then Mike Gundy, he's talking about he's asked about the transfer portal and that kind of thing. He's like, oh, like that's between them and their agents. Like I don't have anything to do with that. Like he just kind of bristles at the thought of the transfer portal. Well, look, buddy, like that, it's not going anywhere. Like
Mhm.
NIL and transfers are going to be here for however long, and if you don't want to get with the times, then you're screwed. And they lost 33-7 at home to South Alabama, and like
Not Alabama, South Alabama.
they lost to USA, the University of South Alabama. And like I do think that like I've heard some folks say like hey, this is actually like that's a pretty good like South Alabama team, and that's I tend to agree. But uh they just got destroyed by them. I mean, 33-7, and you don't want to take transfers or deal with NIL. Like he's had a great run there, but it's over. Like I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
it's absolutely over. He is done. And if he's still the head, and like they've got 9 more games to play. We'll see what they do, but it does not look good at all in Stillwater right now.
No, I'm with you there. Let's
This
see.
week I'm trying to count the ranked versus ranked matchups because there's so many. We have, oh, if this will load.
I got 6 by my count.
Is Clemson just not ranked anymore?
No, they're not.
So we can't even count that one. Uh, Florida State's at Clemson at 11 a.m., same time as our game. Um, I mean, I get they looked bad, but I don't know. I guess Florida State could go in there and crush them and kind of crush their hopes. Um, looks like, oh yeah, there's a whole string of them. Colorado at Oregon, UCLA at Utah, Ole Miss at Alabama, Notre Dame. Where's that one at? Ohio State at Notre Dame, Iowa at Penn State, Oregon State at Washington State. The battle of the two teams that were left behind. I mean, it's an absolute banger of a weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would be glued to the TV, and that's what you were saying earlier about like this is the week that I'd like to have an 11 a.m. game because it always feels really weird when I walk out of the stadium and there's sun, like, and it's like, wait, but to be able to watch football all the way home, is always exciting, and so I'm really looking forward to the drive home this weekend, where I can watch Colorado, Oregon, and Ole Miss, Alabama, and UCLA, Utah at the same time. Thankfully, I have YouTube TV
Get the
non-spawn
multi-view.
there. That way, I can do the multi-view. But
Yeah,
um, definitely not driving home. I'll have to volunteer to drive there. That way, my dad or somebody else can drive home. But
there you
um,
go.
yeah, it's going to be fun. I like early games for that reason, especially if you get out 2 o'clock with a win, and it's like, okay, let's go watch football the rest of the day. And yeah, there's some really good matchups here, and I think I'm definitely most excited about Ohio State Notre Dame.
Yeah,
That's going to be a really fun matchup.
yeah. It's definitely the cream of the crop. I mean, like talk about brands. Like two of the probably 3 or 4 biggest brands in the sport. Um, it's also number 6 versus number 9, which nice. Um, but like, I don't know how to even feel about that one. Like,
Yeah,
like last year that game was kind of ugly. Like, not a lot of offense, and like Notre Dame was just trying to hold the ball for as long as they could. This year
true.
they've actually got a quarterback. They've actually got an offense. They're playing at home. Like that's man, that's such an interesting game. Um, as far as the ranked versus ranked, uh, like the I think like the most fun one might be Oregon State and Washington State, and it sucks because I like them both. Like like this season, like outside of A&M, I'm kind of rooting for those two teams with all the realignment things that have kind of been dealt to them. But um, we kind of hit Ole Miss, Alabama. Um, does Colorado make it a game with Oregon, or do they get exposed this week?
That's a good question. I think they make it a game, but I don't think it's because of how good they are. I just think Oregon's probably more on even footing with them. Um, I think give it a week. Well, next week they play USC. I think that's when they get exposed.
Yeah.
Or they play Oregon State. It might lose to Oregon State now. Um, but no, I mean they're all gas, no brakes, but they're just gonna hit a wall.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, this is interesting. Uh, the week ahead of our game, Arkansas is at LSU this week.
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I'd
that's a
lean
hard
LSU.
game.
I'd lean LSU there, but like those games are always tough. Like
Oh, absolutely.
I remember, like when there were years where we couldn't even like LSU would beat us pretty bad, and then Arkansas would go like shut them out,
Mhm.
or something like that. Like that's always a tough game.
Here's a curveball for you, Will. I just because I like to root for chaos. I think that this week there will be a team that is ranked that gets upset by an unranked team.
Okay.
Which unranked versus ranked do you think has the biggest potential of an upset?
Well, I won't say this one because it's kind of a technicality. I would say Clemson, but like they're a good team still, and they're playing that game at home, so I won't go with them. But a ranked team that's on upset alert. Um, oh shoot,
There's a lot of really good options here, actually.
yeah, man, I'm gonna get crap for this, but it might be Texas. Um, just because, so like the first week Baylor lost to Texas State, right?
Mhm.
Like in by like double digits.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, Baylor's done. They're awful." Like,
Texas State's first Power 5 win ever
yeah.
as a program.
So me, like a dummy, I wrote Baylor off immediately.
Right.
Well, then the following week they hosted Utah, who's a really good team,
Mhm.
and almost beat them. Like that game came down to the last second, and I think they like had like a turnover, like a punt return or something that set Utah up with the last second field goal, like for them to win. But like that was a physical back and forth game. Um, it's at Baylor, which I mean, not the most intimidating place, and not very far to go for Texas. But yeah, with Texas and with Quinn Ewers, I wonder if they just get up for that one game a year,
Yeah.
and then they should go back to being normal the rest of the year, and they're just like 8-4.
Could be that's what they have been. I mean, they've got to prove that they're not that this year because really this year Texas, to Texas's credit, or what I will say for Texas fans is that they're going to get everybody's best this year, and not only because they're number 3 in the nation right now. That's enough of a reason for them to get Baylor's best this weekend, but also because they're leaving the Big 12. And
Yeah,
we know what that hatred is like whenever people, really come at you. But I have a feeling, especially because of just the dissolution of things, that all these teams that, especially Baylor, Texas Tech, the ones that have been in the Big 12 with Texas for so long, they're they're gonna play up to Texas because they want that eternal scoreboard. And so it's gonna be a year for Texas where you got to give it your all every single game. And that's hard to do whenever you're coming off of 8-4 year. I don't know what they went last year, but um,
I think something like that, like eight and
yeah,
five.
it's not. I mean, that's hard enough for a team that's coming off an undefeated season, but it's hard for a team that's not used to being at the top to then staying at the top,
Yeah.
especially all season long. That's hard.
Um, Another ranked team that could get upset. This is a basketball game. This is a Final Four game right here. Uh, Duke, number 18, Duke is going to UConn, who is not bad. Like UConn played NC State very close. Um, they're back to being at least respectable and like you know a probable bowl team. I would say. Um, so like it's always tough going on the road. I think Duke's a really good team, but um, definitely could be some trouble there. And then a team I just heaped a lot of praise on. Oklahoma is playing at Cincinnati in Cincinnati's very first Big 12 game. Um, not an easy place to play at
No,
all.
not at all.
Uh,
I'd watch out
it,
for that one.
it is early. It's at 11 a.m. So if it was a night game, I'd be more inclined to kind of pick that one. But
No,
definitely,
upsets happen at 11 a.m.
that is true. At least when they happen to us, they usually happen at 11 a.m.
Absolutely. But no, I think that's so Big 12 is where I'm looking because I would say I'd put Texas a little bit on upset alert because I'm with you. I've completely overlooked Baylor this year, but they're not that bad of a team that they could surprise a couple people. They could play it up for a game or two and upset somebody, and I think they could absolutely do that. Texas, I think people are overlooking Cincy, as they come into the Big 12 here, and that would be. Let's see, they're 2-1. Who'd they lose to? They lost to somebody.
They lost last week to
Lost to Pitt. No, they
no. I
lost to
think they
Miami, Ohio.
yeah
Yeah, maybe they're not going to upset Oklahoma.
yeah they might not.
But what one of the team or what I'm looking at is Cal Washington.
Yeah,
That'd be an interesting one for sure. Some Pac-12 after dark action.
yeah.
And
9:30 kick.
UNC Pitt, like that's possible too. What would you do if the UTSA Roadrunners went and upset Tennessee at home?
So I looked at that one, and that's such a weird game. Like, why is UTSA playing Tennessee?
I know, but the tickets are probably $400 a piece.
Hey, it says right here as low as $39. I think they meant $390.
Yeah, $39 with a $250 transaction fee.
Yeah, yeah. Man, Tennessee, like this might be a game. I need to come up with a good term for this, but like uh, like when a boxer is kind of like a little bit dizzy and kind of like like they're either going to get back into it and be fine, or they're about to get knocked out.
Mhm.
Um, UTSA is not, they're not Muhammad Ali, by any means, but they're good. They're a good football team. They have a really good coach and good quarterback. Um, they're very experienced, and if Tennessee screws around, uh, they could get knocked out.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for that so I can get some cheaper tickets to watch when A
Oh,
and
me
M
too.
when A&M
Me
plays over
too.
there.
By the way, if you have any Tennessee versus A&M tickets for sale, and you're looking for somebody, I'd probably give you like $200 for them or something.
Yeah,
So just hit me up
if
on
you got
Twitter,
10, it's even
Instagram,
better.
Facebook, doesn't matter. Yeah, if you got a whole bunch of them, we'll give you a group rate.
Um, a couple of games here as we close things out. Um, Sam Houston at Houston. Uh, Houston is not real good. I don't think. I think Sam could get their first win here. Tickets are low as $40 if you're in the Houston area and want to go to that game. If the Bearcats want to show out. Um, App State is at Wyoming. That's just super interesting to me because those are both like giant killer type teams, and that they
Yeah,
both have that underdog mentality. So I'm not sure who's going to be the underdog in that
they're
one,
both
but
gonna win that game.
yeah, exactly. It'll probably be like a 7 overtime type of game. Uh, and then a really cool game that won't get watched because it's 7 o'clock and everyone's gonna be watching Ohio State Notre Dame is UCF at K State. Uh, K State took a loss last week at Missouri, but they're still like a really good team, I think. But UCF, man, like they might make some noise in the Big 12 as one of those newcomers.
Yeah, it depends on if Plumlee comes back or not.
Yeah, they need to get him back.
'Cause he's out for 3 weeks, so or at least right now he's out for 3 weeks. So
Oh, is he?
yeah,
Shoot.
if that ends up being a longer injury than that, then possibly not. But if he was healthy, I would have agreed with you. Um, but we'll see. Hopefully he comes back strong and I can finish the season strong with my
Yeah.
fantasy team.
You need him. Yeah, I think you've got a pretty good team, but you need your best guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I guess lastly, got an eye on Miami. Going to Temple.
Hmm.
Temple's they're kind of hit or miss, but um, would prefer to see Miami just score 70 on them to you know kind of justify some of my like it's like what was it called? Is it confirmation bias?
Hmm.
Yeah, I need that on Saturday. So
Yeah,
I need us
I'm
to
a I'm
win,
a
and I
huge
need.
Miami fan the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hope we see him in the playoff.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's hard to win against the same team twice in one season. So
That's right. That's right. Well, this was pretty long, so got a lot of good info in this one. But anything as we close it out.
I don't think so. Let's beat the hell out of Auburn this weekend, and let's have a fun year.
Yep. Yes, sir. That's what we're looking for. That's what we expect to see, and that's what I think we might see. And hey, the season's not over, and this weekend is a big step. Can be a big step in the right direction. So I can't wait to watch it. Can't wait to talk all about it next week with all you guys and with my good buddy Chase Caldwell. So for Chase, for Hayden, who's not here, I promise we didn't fire him. He'll be back on eventually. It's just been bad timing. So I'm Will Stone. This is the Ineligibles podcast, and we will talk to you next week.